Hello, everyone. Here we are today. I'm not sure when this episode is going to air, but we are recovering from the crud, from the fever and all the cold symptoms and the grossness that we just haven't been feeling well. And we are recording this in March in Canada, and it is snowing and raining and yuck outside, and we are here. So we apologize if there might be an extra sniffle or cough or sneeze in here. We'll try our best to keep our energies at some
I'm running
level.
at half speed here.
But yeah. So, but we have some exciting information for you today. Why should you have an employee handbook before you start hiring? More specifically, we are going to go over 5 reasons you should have an employee handbook before you start hiring. At this point, you might be catching on to this little series we have now, and there are quite a few things that need to go in place before you start doing certain things within your business. So I'm going to just say the 5 things real quick, and then we will go into more detail about each one. And then at the end, you get a little sneak peek at the handbook.
Yeah, and then we'll do like some frequently asked questions.
Yeah, and then we have some FAQs at the end that we'll go over too from you guys. All right, so top 5 reasons you should have an employee handbook before you start hiring. It establishes clear boundaries or clear policies and procedures, legal protection, streamlines onboarding, ensures for consistency, and enhances communication. So first we'll talk about the policies and procedures. So it sets that clear expectation for employees from the beginning. If you have that handbook before you start hiring. If you're a brand new baby company, we do recognize that you may not have all the pieces yet. Even if you buy our template or, use something like that, then you still, as you grow in the beginning, will start to make things your own more. So in the very beginning, you might not have all the policies individualized for yourself, but I do recommend that you sit down and brainstorm and think about the most important things that you would need. So that you can start that, clear expectation from the beginning. Because, of course, you could be transparent with your team and say, hey, we're brand new, and here's what we're starting with. And we definitely expect it to grow and change over the years, especially in the beginning. It's like the toddler infancy and toddler stages of a company. Like, it's going to grow quickly and things are going to change a lot. But it helps for your employees to feel confident and secure in their job, and everyone wants to know what's expected of them. And so it just really helps, set the process off on a good footing.
Yeah, I mean, my experience working with over 1,000 ABA practices now, no one wants to work for a startup, or very, very few people want to work for a startup. So having, buy our handbook, but having like a comprehensive handbook in place, just like we talked about the client handbook. And if you haven't listened or watched the client handbook one, I highly recommend you do that. But just like that one, it does set those clear, establishes those clear policies, but it shows that you are at a different level than a lot of the practices these people have been at before. Like I hear this all the time. Like, we didn't have these policies when I my other companies, right? So like it's going to set you apart. It's going to show that you have your stuff together. You know what you're doing. That you're confident in what you're doing. There's just a difference between coming in and just going with the flow in a ball of anxiety versus, I clearly see what is required of me. I understand where I go to get these policies and procedures. I see that there's a lot of expectations. It's very clear and understandable. Like, wow, this is great. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it helps everyone to understand the rules and the responsibility, and it also, can outline the company culture. And it's also important, because at this point you're already gonna have your mission statement, your values, right? And so that's super important to have in the handbook.
Yeah, and if you don't have your mission statement and values, we highly recommend doing that. I think that you'll be having some training on that soon, right? And I think we'll be doing some podcasts on that. I think we have one already out there if you want to check that one out. But yeah, it really is important to have your values and mission statement, and actually they're in a usable, functional way, so that you can hire using your values. You can onboard staff and clients with your values. You live day to day with your values, but that's a different story for another day.
That's right. So the next reason why you should have employee handbooks before you start hiring is for legal protection. Handbooks and policies and procedures, which that's what's in your handbook, right? Outline the legal obligations of the employer and rights of the employees. So it helps to prevent misunderstandings and potential legal disputes. I'm going to go ahead and also say that it part of the policies and procedures should be like the grievance, right? So if there is a situation or an issue, like it helps to outline who to go to and that process of how to do that.
Yeah, and in another podcast, we will be doing the top 5 things that you should have in your employee handbook. But like just on the legal side of things, like and I think this is one of the frequently asked questions, but I'll say it again. Like just you have to have some kind of an acknowledgement statement. I have seen the handbook. Like just that in itself is super important. Just treating everyone equally, right? If larger companies, FMLA, it's important. OSHA requirements, right? Some states have split shift law. If you don't know what split shift law is, look it up, right? Like those are just things that are really important. Some states have what is it? It's called I can't remember what the name of it is, but like they have a predictive scheduling, right? So like your staff has to know what their schedule is, and if there is a change to it, you have to tell them in a certain amount of time before their schedule. So it's just things like this, smoking, illegal activity, right? Like they're just so many things that you need to follow, and very similar to the client handbook. It's just I don't know what I don't know, and so it's really important that you understand state, fed, funder requirements. Do I need a fingerprint check, or can I just get a background check? Like there's so many things that that you are required to follow. It's just important to have that all down in one place, especially during the onboarding process.
Yeah. So number 3, streamlines onboarding. It does definitely, having the handbook and having all of those policies and procedures in place accelerates the process of getting new hires acclimated to your practice. And it does save time and resources to already have that all together and ready to go, and have like a procedure of how you onboard someone.
Yeah, and like so in our handbook, and we'll kind of go through this again. We do have the checklist for you, the onboarding checklist, and that's really important. Again, that what does a new hire need. So do they need a background check? Do they need a TB test? Is there certain trainings that they need? Do they need certain certifications? Are their certifications current, or do I have to get them retrained? And this is like, what is required training of the funders or the state or the Fed for this job? just having that. And then, something that we do recommend is like putting time limits and expectations on the onboarding process so that the new hire understands, okay, HIPAA training should only take me 3 hours, not 15 days, right? Like, so that there's a clear understanding, there's an expectation of what to do. And if, they are struggling with a certain part of the onboarding process, who do they reach out to, right? So it just helps, again, streamlines everything. It makes it easier. Hopefully you're saving time. Your staff are getting up and running with clients quicker. They're spending less time with their supervisors because the process is so seamless, right? And that really will help. And again, it allows that new staff to be like, okay, they know what they're doing. I can trust this process. This is a good company to work for. And then again, embedding your values into the onboarding process as well.
April and I are so honored to have Margin Keepers sponsor this podcast.
Running an ABA business comes with its share of challenges. Managing clients, staff, insurance, the list goes on.
One thing you shouldn't add to your stress, bookkeeping. That's where Margin Keepers comes in.
They're specialists in ABA businesses, which means they understand exactly what we need.
With Margin Keepers handling your finances, you can focus on what really matters, your clients and your practice's growth.
They're more than just bookkeepers. They're lifesavers in the financial world of ABA.
So for peace of mind and expert financial management,
turn to Margin Keepers. It's a decision that will lift a weight off of your shoulders.
Check out Margin Keepers at www.marginkeepers.com and see how they can help your business thrive.
Yeah, for sure. All right, well, that brings us to the fifth one. Enhance fourth one. Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. Fourth. So this brings us to the fourth one, ensures consistency. So similar to a lot of what we've been talking about already, but it helps for things to be consistent and maintains fairness across the board by applying the same rule and standards to all employees.
Yeah, it's just, again, it's really important. Similar to the client handbook, you want to make sure that it doesn't matter if it's coming from supervisor A, supervisor B, admin person, everybody understands the rules, they understand the policies, and it doesn't matter who it's coming from, it's the same. And that's just it's gonna help with everything. The same rules. It's really important for, equal opportunity. You want to treat everybody the same. So that's it's really important.
Yeah. All right. Fifth one, enhances communication. There again, it's a great resource, right? Having that employee handbook with policies and procedures, outlining your legal protection, streamlining your onboarding, ensuring consistency, like all of those things, right? Communication, having a go-to resource for all of those frequently asked questions really helps with the communication about all of the things we just talked about today and anything else that comes up, right?
Yeah,
to help reduce that confusion and increase transparency within the company.
Yeah, I think it helps with how much time the leadership is having to take as well. So this new hire keeps on coming back to us. So they have a question about this. They have a question about that. Well, if you have those policies and procedures all laid out, hopefully they're reading them instead of taking up your time, right? So, because as you grow, you may have time for that if you have 2 staff, but if you got 25, you don't. And so, that's what these are there for. So as you grow, everybody's getting that same experience, no matter if you're in the office or not, because at the end of the day, that would be the goal, is that, if you want to take a week off, heaven forbid, that you can, and everybody's still going to have the same process. They're going to follow the same system.
Absolutely. Well, is it time?
I guess so.
We would love for you to pull up the handbook and give us a little sneak peek.
All right. So this is the employee handbook. You'll see all this legalese. Again, very similar to the client handbook. I don't know what you're doing with these things. So please get them reviewed by someone with HR competency after doing it. And as I said, we go to Fed and state law, but we do not go down to city or county law. So it's really important that you review these. And then the other thing is like, laws change frequently. We do provide free updates, but we are not going to say, email you and say, oh, hey, Sally, you're in North Carolina. On this day, these laws change. You need to take care of that. Like, that's not a service that we provide. So it's really important that you understand when new laws are coming into effect and taking care of those. Most laws have grace periods, but again, consult an attorney. Highly recommend you have an attorney. Legal Shield is a great place for that. So this is our table of contents. Very similar to the client handbook. If you watch that one, so we have our new hire checklist. We have our direct deposit form. I get many questions on that one. So like, well, I don't do direct deposit yet. Well, that's okay. Just remove it. Don't use it. We can go into our offer letter. That works for both salary and hourly employees. One thing that we do get asked for on the regular, I would say, is a non-compete for staff. We don't believe in non-competes. We will not add a non-compete to our handbooks. If you want to add a non-compete, you do you. That's something that you'll need to add. We do offer a non-solicit and a non-disclosure, but we do not do a non-compete as part of our handbook. And then we have all of these, policies and procedures. You may be hiring staff that have never worked inside the home before or worked with clients before. So, how do they treat clients? How do they interact with families in the home? What's the gift policy? Your background check policies, alcohol and drugs, resolving grievances is one that you mentioned. Some of the standards like ACQ, BHCOE require a whistleblower policy, so we got you covered there. And then, things like what do you do with cell phones during sessions, right? Can they carry them around or can they go on Facebook? And we talked about split shift policy. That's an important policy that you need to find out if it applies to you. How do you do paid time off? What about mileage reimbursement?
Mileage, yeah.
So, do you have to pay mileage or do you not? Weapons-free workplace, incident report, super. One that we get asked all the time. Staff quit. They still have their iPad or their tablet. What do I do? Right? Like, we talked about predictive scheduling, mandate a reporter, FMLA, FLSA, and then we had our non-solicit agreement, driving record, and then we have some of these other things. And then good things that you should have is an exit interview. And in our latest version, which we just released, because this is an older version, I'm not showing you the top-notch one. In our latest version, we do have a stay interview in there as well. So that's something that we highly recommend using. So this is our new hire checklist. Again, you may want to add, okay, this takes a certain amount of time. This takes a certain amount of time, just to have that understanding and expectation. And then add whatever training that you have. You may have like practice management software training or things like that.
Yeah, we took for my company there the last couple of years. I honestly should look back at that data because I never really did anything with that data, but I started to track how long it took new hires to do certain things so that we could come up with a really reasonable amount of time for things to be done.
Yeah. it's really important. And you want to make your like this again, a different topic for a different day.
Yeah.
But like you want to make your onboarding process pretty strenuous to the point where it may weed out some of those people that like you don't want quitting after 3 weeks of working with a client, right? So like if you can kind of, I mean, maybe this is a mean way of saying, but if you can get rid of those those potential hires or those new staff before they start seeing clients, you've done yourself a service, really. I mean, it may cost some money, obviously, but again, it's better to lose them during the onboarding process. So this is the direct deposit form. Like I said, you don't do direct deposit yet. That stuff, that's fine. Just remove it. This is our offer letter, and this is, I think, as far as I'm going to go. So there's lots of yellow highlights in here, as you can see, obviously, because you're going to have to change a whole lot. So who is this going to? What position are they getting? And then, you know, do they have to do a background check? How often are you paying them? What are they? Are they hourly or salary? This is something that I think I'm going to be complaining and talking about this thing for the rest of my life. But you do have to pay for drive time. You have to pay for drive time to and from clients. So, but you can have a different hourly rate for drive time. You can have a different hourly rate for training time. But it has to be explicitly stated in the offer letter. So it's really important that you're following all of those laws. You know, are they exempt or non-exempt? So do they qualify for overtime or not? Benefits that you offer. And then, like I said, we don't have a non-compete, but we do have a non-disclosure and a non-solicit agreement in this handbook. So you can use those. And that's really all you need to cover yourself anyway. You're basically asking them, you know, if you leave, don't call up all the clients and say, these guys suck, I'm awesome, come with me. Or that they won't disclose any special things that you do, you know, that are very confidential within your company if you're doing specialized training or something like that. So that's something that, you know, that should cover you. You don't need a non-compete, and you really shouldn't be using a non-compete. Many non-competes, and we have a podcast on this one. Many non-competes are very broad, and they wouldn't pass. Like they wouldn't stand up in court anyway. So really, it's don't do it, in my opinion. But yeah, so this is the offer letter. Again, you're gonna need to modify these. And I'm going to show you how to modify all these placeholders. So just like the client handbook, if you come up here where this green arrow is and you double click here, it'll have this disclaimer. And basically it is, some of these have limits on them. Like your company address can only be a certain amount of characters because otherwise the spacing gets messed up. So you're just saying, yes, I understand that. And if you don't like how it's working because of the spacing, you can use find all, replace all if you would rather. But now it's going to go in, what do you call a behavior tech? Most people call them behavior techs, but you never know. Maybe you only hire registered behavior technicians. I don't know. So you can enter it here and then it will change it right here. So where it says behavior tech right here. So I click OK. You can see now this has changed all of those placeholders throughout the limit or throughout the document. And then, like I said, the company address is limited in characters. So if your address is larger than that, you may need to skip this one. You can just cancel it and then put it in on your own to fix that spacing issue. Does that make sense? And that's it. That is how this amazing handbook works. Very comprehensive, comes in Word and Excel. And you get free updates.
All right. So on to frequently asked questions.
Okay.
So our first question is, should I get my employee to sign the handbook?
Yes. And so there may be some things like an acknowledgement of receipt of the handbook is super important. And then there are going to be certain things that you get them to sign. So like permission for background check. you should probably get that signed. I'm going to back up for a second. I am not an attorney. So talk
You're
to an
not
attorney.
an attorney. I am not an attorney.
So talk to an attorney. I'll give you some guidance, but I am not an attorney. And so again, Legal Shield is great for you. If you don't have an attorney, I highly recommend getting an attorney. But yes, so there are certain things that you may want signed, like some funders require that you have a supervision contract in place. So that's something that needs to get signed. You may require signatures on certain training, like fire and evacuation, mandated reporter. There are other things that you want signed. And again, I think I already said the offer letter is one that you certainly want signed. Because that's going to state how much they make, when they get paid, that they agree to the non-solicit, non-disclosure, that they agree that they'll do a background check, right? So all of these things that is required of them to get employment.
Right. But in general, for the handbook, that they have, like, they're signing that they have read it. And
Yep.
they've received it and read it.
Yeah. And then there may be some things in the employee handbook that get a separate signature just because of the nature of the item. Yeah.
Yeah. How often should I update my employee handbook?
I mean, you should review it at least yearly. This could be part of your HIPAA audit risk assessment anyway, right? Like, just do all of this at the same time. You're reviewing all of your HIPAA stuff. You might as well review all your company policies, employee policies, client handbook, all of that stuff. But there may be times where you're like, wow, this just happened, right? And you're like adding a new policy.
Then you add it.
Then you add it and you distribute it, and again, this is a great reason to have them on some kind of electronic, server type thing, like a SharePoint or in one, or like whatever the Google one is called, right? Where you can
Google Drive.
There you go. You got it. Look at you. And so that people can then access those updated ones. You don't you want to, I didn't mention this in the client podcast, but you don't want a lot of old handbooks lying around, right? Because if you do get into an issue where people are disputing, I didn't get the new one, right? Like, I don't know this policy. So that's just so you want to try to limit the amount of floating policies that are just old or obsolete. So you want to try and centralize these and limit the amount of printing off if possible, or editing, right? So again, you only give editable versions of your handbook to people that need to edit it. So yeah, I don't know. Maybe I went off on a tangent there, but
all good.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Let's see. Can the employee handbook help with an Optum audit?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So this is one of the main handbooks for the Optum audit. So there are 3 handbooks that I highly recommend. You'll pass the Optum agency audit portion, no problem. So this is the client handbook, the employee handbook, and the company policies. I do highly recommend that you get HIPAA as well, just because you are a medical practice. You need to follow HIPAA and state privacy laws. Yes, it will help you through the Optum audit.
How do I ensure my employees read and understand the handbook?
Oh no, how do you do that, April?
Well, we did a couple of different things. We included it in, part of our training. So there were parts of, we didn't just hand them our handbook and say, here, read this, sign it, let me know you did it. Well, we did at one point. And then we realized that doesn't work. So very similarly to the client handbook, we picked out very specific pivotal pieces in there that had to be reviewed on day one. And then different stages of what needs to be reviewed when in the onboarding process, and what things can they just read on their own, what things do you or whoever is the the trainer in the situation would go over specifically, but then we also had a quiz
Yes.
at the end of it, so that they would have to take a quiz, and it was an open book, like open handbook quiz, like they could use the handbook to go through the quiz.
Yes.
But that way we knew that at least that they could find the answers that they needed, and then we also really tried our best to use it as a resource, not as much as I would have liked to, just not 3Pi Square, but more my agency as things started to change there the last couple of years a lot. I was kind of in that updating process, a little bit longer than I wanted to. And so things got a little bit messy, but that's a great, like we always say, learn from our mistakes. That's a thing that I was striving to do, was trying to keep up with the changes within our agency and putting them in those handbooks and really using them as resources, because no one needs to memorize the whole handbook.
No.
But they do need to know what's like priority and most important, and how to refer back to it. And there again, that's why the electronic or having some kind of way of making sure that everyone is reviewing the most recent one. Like if you have like an employee portal or something like that, the most recent one is up in there, so that we're all looking at the same thing.
So quizzes are the answer to this, right? Open book quizzes. No one, like, if you count, if you were to make a purchase, please make a purchase. If you were to make a purchase of our client handbook, employee handbook, company policies, and HIPAA, just those alone, you're talking about like 600 pages.
Yeah.
No one's expected to know what 6.153-A mean, right? Tell me that from memorization. Like no one's gonna be expected to do that, but they are expected to know. I go to this website and I click on this link and I use this search bar and I can find 6-51 or whatever policy, and then I can copy and paste that and I can put it into my quiz answer, so I know how to get there, I know how to navigate it. Really, that's what we want. And then for your staff, like especially like leadership, if leadership knows the answer to this question that they get is in the handbook, they should be gently recommending to their staff that they go to the handbook to find the answer rather than give the answer. And again, that will just save everybody time. It'll make it more consistency. The BCBA or the leadership doesn't have to memorize the code and memorize the policy and what if it's changed, right? So like this just takes that off of them and it treats everybody the same. Everybody has the same consistent message and understanding. And so I quizzes and again, the gentle reminders that everything is here, that can help.
Yes. All right, last question for today. What's the best way to distribute the handbook to my team?
Yeah, I mean, we've already said it probably 5 times on this podcast, but so like a SharePoint, some kind of web portal is probably going to be your best bet. Like, they're fairly inexpensive. If you have Microsoft 365, it's free with it. So at least at the point of this podcast, if it's not free anymore, it's not my problem. And so then you can add those new updates to it, and then you can see when people review those new updates. You can add the quizzes right in the onboarding process on the SharePoint. Everything is in one place. It just makes the whole process so much easier. I would highly recommend a SharePoint or something like that for these. That's what they're meant for, right? Mm-hmm. You can add videos to that as part of the onboarding process, or your like the checklist. You can take the checklist and put it into Microsoft SharePoint, and then have videos or the links to the trainings that you have for each specific one. So it can be really nice. And while it takes a lot of work to put it in, maybe it's just going to save yourself so much time over time. So
yeah.
Okay.
Well, there we are. The 5 top reasons you should have an employee handbook before you start hiring.
Before.
Yep.
Before.
All right. Before. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for listening and taking time out of your busy schedules to be with us today. And we hope you have a great one.
See ya.